Together, Chillingforth is like the dark revenge side, and she's like the temptation side, so they kind of complete the satanic sphere.
In addition to the temptation, I think that she represents Flaw going along with that, because she is the sister of the governor, who is this angelic being to all the citizens of the community, and she is the complete opposite of that. And she's the Flaw that attacks people's minds, and she wants to make them do things that they don't want to do, that will make them flawed.
They maybe want to do it, but they shouldn't.
Yeah.
They know they shouldn't.
Yeah.
So like, I just think that they're in this Puritan society, and then when someone like comes clean with their sin, like Hester, everyone looks upon her, but it's like Mrs. Hibbins is just kind of this secret, like all-knowing being who is like another sinner who's just there, always in this Puritan society. Like, I just see her as this all-knowing like creeper person, because when Dimmesdale's on the scaffold and he's like screaming out and she like peeks out the window, I thought was so creepy. I don't know, she's just like symbolic of sin within a so-called perfect society. It's like everyone is a little bit corrupt within this so-called people.
And she's given into the sin, but Hester hasn't. That's it.
Oh, it's okay. Well, I was just thinking when you said that, like, Mr. Timmons, like, he's related to, like, the governor and how he's perfect. It's kind of like Dimmesdale's two personalities, like, in one. You know, he's not exactly like Mr. Timmons, but, like, he has, like, this sin side, and then he has, like, this perfect side. So I feel like that's, like, a different relationship that shows, like, the two sides, but in different ways.
And so I think with Mr. Simmons, this is, like, kind of out there. I don't know. But I think she's kind of like the opposite of Hester, because Hester accepted her sin by like overcoming it and like becoming something greater than her sin, and Mr. Simmons accepted, like, we don't know what her sin is, but there's probably a lot. And she accepted her like a lot of sins and stuff by basically becoming them and like embodying what her sins do. And so she's become like what gives it like kind of a she-demon, because I don't know, they're just so opposite, because Hester overcame and Mr. Simmons succumbed. And I think even though she's like a very small character in the book, she has like a lot wider influence than we seem to think when we're reading it. Like, she's very small.
And she's like a comparison to Hester. Like, you would think Hester would be the darkest, like, because of her sin, she was considered to be the darkest, but the book showed that she's completely opposite from the darkest. So she is light. So I think Mr. Severance is just a comparison to show that there's two different sides of sin. Just saying what I thought that you were saying.
I think she also kind of shows like what would have happened if Hester hadn't been like open with her sin. Because like Hester wears it like literally wears it like right there. It's like it's red. It's like, hello, I'm an adulterer. But like with Mr. Simmons, like she keeps everything that she does like kind of inside. She doesn't tell. Like everybody knows that she does something, but they don't know exactly what.
Yeah.
And so I think it kind of shows like where Hester could have been if like she wasn't like open and like didn't try to like repent or like try to make things right with herself. You know?
I would agree with that and say that that yeah, like Mr. Simmons is kind of there to show the stark difference between like people who let their sins like destroy them and then or like let them like push them forward to be a better person and like change to like learn from it. And also, kind of just like what Lexi was saying, just that she, like, I think she also kind of represents, I know someone else was saying this too, but like how it seems like such a perfect society, but everyone has their own sins, and so like she's kind of representing everyone else and how like everyone else has their own sins inside of them that they're kind of letting eat them away, because like Hester's come forward and she's been able to like move on from that and let it push her forward, like I said, but like everyone else in the society obviously has had sins in different ways, but they haven't been forward about them. So I think she kind of represents sin to everyone else as well.
That's good. Johnny, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think that, you know, how Hester goes out and she's forward with her sin and makes everyone else feel bad about themselves and their own sins. And that's kind of why they treat Hester so harshly the way they do, because they feel like, you know, like, look at her, she's doing these awful adulterous acts, I guess you could say. And then they can kind of justify their own sins and feel like, and it just makes it easier on themselves by giving her a hard life.
I was going to maybe move on and ask a question, if that's okay. When I was talking to my dad about this, one of the questions that we talked about was what kind of justices that are dealt with, how people are treated in the end. And I just wanted to ask what everyone thought about that.
Could you like?
Yeah.
Well, like,
Ask a question.
what kind of justices are used in the novel is what my question is.
Me. Or, I mean,
Before we get into nobody's,
Oh,
I would like to share a thought.
okay.
oh, quickly, yeah, sorry. You know how, they're like, Hester's bosom is a pillow? I'm just like, what? No,
It's
No, I don't.
I don't know where, but I'm like, I just thought that was cool. And to answer, no, it's cool. No, it says that, I
Yes.
thought. But the justice, I think justice could be kind of like, there's different, like, I feel like your question is leading to say that there are different forms of justice. And there's like maybe the good justice and the bad justice. And I feel like, and then there's the in-between justices. But I feel like Chillingsworth is like, everyone in their own way is trying to achieve justice. And some of them go about it in interesting ways, like I think even Mrs. Shivens is trying to get justice. Maybe she's trying to make herself feel better by dragging others down. That's all.
Okay, and so I think there's like 3 major type of justices in the book. So there's like justice that is like tried to be frowned upon by the public. So you have Hester, who the public makes her wear the scarlet letter and pay for her sin this way publicly. And then there's personally, who's Dimmesdale, who's like whipping himself and like killing himself to try to achieve justice on his own. But then I think the bigger picture in the whole novel is that there's this justice from God that Dimmesdale finally like comes to terms with, saying that like God is the only one who can give me the justice that is full and like well deserved. And I think that's just what Hawthorne is trying to get across, that like you can't like judge other people and have the public justice be the right justice. It's from God, who can only give the true justice.
Yeah, I really like how at the end of the book, it kind of, most people where it's questionable, how did they punish enough Dimmesdale, what's going on with that? Both Dimmesdale and Chillingsworth die, which basically is like, they put the fate of those characters, the justice that they will receive, is then like put into the hands of the reader. It's what you believe after they die, whatever you want to think happens to them after they die determines like what justice they receive.
And Chillingsworth literally shrivels up into a thing. I think his revenge literally just ate him away. And he wants justice by revenge.
Going off from John's thing, I think they all receive like a kind of greater justice in the end by death, because Dimmesdale dies, and then in the end, Chillingworth, after he like gets his revenge and all that stuff, he dies because he has nothing else, like no other goal in his life other than revenge. And after that happened, he just didn't have anything to live for anymore. And then Hester was the only one that actually like lived longer and like grew to old age. And then when her justice finally came, it was kind of like, this is kind of a dumb reference, but not dumb. But in Harry Potter, like when the third brother like welcomes death as an old friend, I think that that's kind of what Hester did, because she, like, her life was just so fulfilled because she overcame so much that she just like welcomed it instead of going like angrily.
Can I, sorry, one thing off of what you said, I think also Hester's justice comes through Pearl, because somewhere it says that Pearl, you know, we don't necessarily know what happens to her, but they think she goes and she becomes happy, married, has a family. And so lots of the times we hear that parents find the most joy in their children. So I think Hester is truly repaid for herself being kind of beat up over the Scarlet Letter by having Pearl. Then she receives all this wealth from Chillingsworth, and then she is blessed and becomes happy and has a great life. So then she finds joy in Pearl, and that's her blessing and her justice.
Okay, kind of just going back a little bit, it kind of bugs me, but like everyone thinks that Dimmesdale and Chillingsworth were doing something
like bad. Cause like maybe they thought they were doing something good by like staying quiet. Because with like the sin that Hester committed, like it's a horrible sin, but when you see it, the way that everybody was seeing it in the town, she was really only hurting herself and kind of her little demon girl who nobody really cared about. But if you add faces, like this is the person that she hurt, this is the person that she hurt them with, like then it kind of makes her sin a little bit worse. And so maybe they thought that like maybe by staying quiet, it was helping her.
I think that like, I kind of agree with like that it might be a good thing because like the society, like, yeah, Hester is like shamed, but like who are they to judge her? Like, you know what I mean? Like they all seem to like have this belief that like God is like gets the final judgment, but then like why is it that everyone thinks that they need to judge everyone? You know, I think it's like just like showing the corrupt society. I think like that's.
So this is going way back to what Brayden said like in the beginning about who the like real bad guy is. And like also with like Lexi's, I think like every villain thinks that they're a hero. So I think like Chillingsworth, like he thinks like getting revenge is like justified because of like what Hester's done to him, and Hester thinks that like being with Dimmesdale's justified because that's who she loves. So I think like the real bad guy or our hero is who we relate with the most, because you know someone's eyes is gonna be totally different based on like your point of view and like what you relate to.
I think it's important. I think it's important to note that the Puritans, I don't think that they think they're doing a bad thing by judging Hester, because I think they use God to justify putting her on the scaffold and asking her like who the father is. And like we were talking about justification and how God is justification for most parts of the society. And so the Puritans are using God to justify like questioning Hester. And so I think they're doing a good thing by helping her repent. And also I think it's important to note that Hester didn't give up the name of Dimmesdale even though she was relentlessly asked about it. And so I think that she doesn't think Dimmesdale deserves to be as like punished, maybe.
Okay, so we only have like a few minutes left, like very few. So I just want to ask like one closing thought. What would you say is like the running theme of the book? Because every book has that one underlying theme. And so I'm just wondering like what do you think the main theme is?
Redemption. I think it's like dealing with sin, like how people.
And everyone has to
overcome
justice.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So, I really got into this theme because I kind of, when we were talking about Dimmesdale, and let's see, it's on page 120, and it's, let's see if I can find this. It kind of, what got me really interested in Dimmesdale is 120, it's, yet Mr. Dimmesdale would perhaps have seen this individual's character more perfectly if a certain morbidness to which sick hearts are liable had not rendered him suspicious of all mankind. Trusting no man as his friend, he could not recognize his enemy when the latter actually appeared. And the thing is, that's what got me interested in him, and I realized that the common theme of the whole Scarlet Letter is placing guilt and pain on something else or someone else. So the whole society, colony of Massachusetts, all put their guilt of their sin and all their pain and everything that they've suffered onto Hester, because she's their something like the symbol of sin, the embodiment of sin that they've raised up, so they can all point and shame, so they make themselves look better in comparison, because they know they've all sinned.
Yeah.
But if someone's that bad is up there on the pedestal, then they feel better about themselves. And so Dimmesdale is kind of the exact opposite, but it's all about putting your pain and guilt on something else. So Chillingsworth puts all of his pain and guilt and jealousy and rage into trying to get revenge and trying to take down Dimmesdale. And Dimmesdale puts it all on, Dimmesdale's weird, he puts it all on himself. And then,
Okay, so let's go with like two more thoughts.
yeah.
Sorry. So I think there's a lot of underlying themes, but I think like the one that really stuck out to me was redemption. And I think Maddie said that. But kind of my take on it is like that Hester embodies redemption because she's the only person that was really able to accept that she's not perfect, and that's like, I don't know, like, kind of for her justification at the end is like, that she accepts that she's not going to be perfect, but she's going to, like, still try to overcome what she's been through, while, like, Chillingworth is so focused on revenge, and Dimmesdale's so focused on their sin, and, like, the rest of the society is so focused on their sin, they can't recognize that, like, there's no way they can ever be perfect, so they can't use it to move on, because they can't accept that. They can't accept that, like, God is only one that will give them, like, a fair justification for what they've done. But, like, since Hester is the one that's willing to do that, she's the one that, like, gains redemption for what she's done. That's the thing.
Mine really builds on Eliza's, but I think the thing that really stands out to me is how corrupt the Puritan society is. And for me, it sounds kind of pessimistic, but for me, the theme is corruption is inevitable. Like, corruption in society is going to happen. Like even at the end, when he opens up and they see the scarlet letter on him, people insist that it was not there because he was so perfect. They insist that they are right, even though they have seen it with their own eyes. And they're buying Hester's things when the other day they were saying that she's an adulterer, and now they're like, oh, we love you, Abel Hester. But so corruption in society is inevitable, but so you can't do anything about that. You have to overcome your own corruption. You know, Hester accepts that she has sinned and she rises above it. And Dimmesdale doesn't, and he dies. And so just like, we can't do anything about corruption over here in the big mass of people. We have to face it in ourselves first.
Mine goes right off of that. I have a quote about it, and I actually wrote my blog 7 last night, so I was proud, but this is what I wrote it on, kind of the meaning of the book. And it was all based on this quote that kind of tells how to do. Caleb is saying we need to, take care of corruption in ourselves, and this kind of tells how. This is 236. It's near the very top. It says, "Be true, be true, be true. Show freely to the world, if not your worst, yet some trait whereby the worst may be inferred." So at the beginning, I was like, what? Be true, show the world that you suck. What's the point of that? But I took it more to mean that you're supposed to be true to yourself by always being, like, who you are is always like the worst you are. You never do anything worse than what you show to everyone else. So even if that means your life isn't as good, then you're not lying it to anyone. There's no false expectations.